Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems and welcome back to Monster Energy Supercross for the official video game, where today we are going to be playing a custom replica version that I built of the 2021 Paris Supercross and talking about the upcoming 2021 Paris Supercross coming up this Saturday. If you're watching this a day or two after I release it, the Paris Supercross has already happened, so this is really just kind of a quick preview synopsis of who's going to be racing the Paris Supercross, kind of my thoughts and opinions about it all. And then, talk maybe a little bit about some off-season stuff, because we're only about 40 or so days away from the Anaheim opener and Supercross. So, man, it's this off-season. In some ways, it feels long because there's just not much racing or anything going on this off-season, except for this Paris Supercross. But in other ways, it feels like it's going to go by so quick, and we're going to be at Anaheim again before you know it. So, first off, let's talk about this track that I built. There is a track map that was released, but I actually built this completely off of photos and some practice videos that have come out today already. They already did like a Friday night practice session. Normally Paris Supercross is a 2-day event, but they're only doing one night. I think just, COVID restrictions and everything like that. They're trying to just get people in and out of arena quickly there. But anyway, the track, as you can see, it's somewhat supercrossy, but it's obviously missing one huge component of a normal supercross track, and that is the whoops. Otherwise, rhythm lanes are they're pretty standard. There's not anything massively gnarly or different about the rhythm sections. The supercross jump is or the finish line jump is a supercross triple, I should say, and then they always include this section in the middle of the track right here where they go over kind of like an over-under bridge, but it's not a full over-under bridge. They do that though because they need a huge landing for the freestyle show that they have, so they build this huge tunnel jump type of thing for the freestyle jump landing, and they just include it as part of the track. So if you ever watch the Paris Supercross, it always looks like they're going over the finish line jump when they hit that, but it's actually not the finish line jump. That Supercross triple that I hit was a finish line jump. But yeah, I mean, pretty standard Supercross otherwise, obviously missing the whoops, and I'll get to why in just a minute. But typical layout, 6 lanes, football stadium-esque look. The rhythm lanes are a little bit shorter than they can be, but that's because they have to fit the whole pit lane inside of the stadium as well. So yeah, I don't know. It's the Paris Supercross. It's looked a lot like this every year that they've had it at the Paris La Défense Arena, which is a new stadium that they went to in 2017, I think, for the first time. They went to Lille a couple years. From 2014 to 2016, I think it was, which was nowhere close to Paris, but they called it the Paris Lille Supercross anyway. And then obviously before that, it used to be called the Bercy Supercross because it was in a little district of Paris called Bercy, and in a much smaller arena back then, but now they've moved to this larger stadium. So a couple tidbits about the history, but talking about the riders entering this event, because I think that's kind of the key talking point why the Paris Supercross is usually a big deal every year. So there's a pretty healthy list of American riders that have come over. It's a little bit less so than was initially expected. I'm pretty sure they expected Cooper Webb, Dylan Ferrandis, and a couple others to have come, but when they moved the date back and a couple other restrictions came into play with France travel and everything like that, it ended up being that they couldn't come. Maybe the biggest marquee rider that's actually racing this that normally wouldn't is the man that I'm using today, Antonio Cairoli. He is elected to give Paris Supercross a go before he fully stops training and riding full-time. He just came off of his essentially final couple GPs. He's still going to do some more GPs, but his MXGP career is now over, so spent the last 3 weeks or so after that last GP getting ready for this now. And going to be excited to see how he does, because he has not raced the Paris Supercross or Bercy Supercross since 2010, and probably hasn't stepped much foot on a Supercross track otherwise than that since then as well. So kind of keen to see where he's at with timing and rhythm sections and everything like that. Obviously doesn't have to deal with whoops, but that's going to be cool. On the American front, we got guys going over there like Justin Brayton. Justin Brayton's going to be there. Justin Bogle, Chad Reed, Marvin Muscan, Alex Martin, Josh Hill is going to be there. Ryan Sipes is also there. So a decent little mix of guys. It's not your probably elite anymore. Like, you could say Marvin is still pretty top tier, but I don't necessarily put him as the top 3 or 4 guys in the world in Supercross anymore. And then obviously Chad Reed, he's retired, but he still comes out and does some of these races, and it sounds like he's going to try to do some Supercross in 2022 just as some one-off events as well. a legend, but not the same speed that he used to be anymore. And then, you know, Brayton, he's great. He's a main event winner. Justin Bogle, former 250 Supercross champion, also in the mix as well. So a good mix of guys. What I'm most excited to see, though, is how this whole, like, USA versus GP dynamic plays out, because on top of Cairoli being there, Romain Febvre is also going to be there. And Febvre, obviously being from France, has a little bit more Supercross background to him than Cairoli. He's, you know, got maybe a little bit more finesse in his riding than Cairoli as well because of that. And peculiarly enough, he actually qualified fastest, or practiced fastest, whatever you want to call it, in the sessions earlier today. He just beat Marvin by, I think, 2/10 or so in the end. So that's kind of cool. Like, it would be pretty gnarly if against that competition, even without whoops, I get it, but even that competition alone on a mostly Supercross-esque track, if Febvre can come out and win, that would be, I feel like, a pretty big talking point. So excited to see it. It is going to happen tomorrow night. If you're watching this the day the video comes out, it's going to be on Saturday, November 27th. There's going to be a live stream that we believe is going to be put up through the Paris Supercross website, but I'll try to tweet out a link if you guys follow me on Twitter to, you know, watch it live. It's probably going to be all French. There's not going to be any English involved with it, so I would assume, at least. So you pretty much just get to watch the racing, and I think it's going to be fun to watch for sure. Opinions-wise about where this is going to go, I feel like you have to say that Marvin Musquin's the favorite. He is pretty much the only, like, true factory rider coming from the U.S. that's here. You know, Bogle, you could say, is factory because of the HEP Suzuki team. You could kind of say Brayton's factory because he gets help from Honda to ride for Moto Concepts, but Marvin is factory KTM. You know, like, it's full-blown factory team. So, you know, he should be the guy that is the guy to beat, and he's been rumored to be looking very fast on the test tracks of lately, so I think that puts him as, like, A, you know, 1A, I guess, in terms of the winning scale of this event. You know, you could say probably Brayton should challenge. Obviously, it looks like Febvre is going to challenge a little bit too, so that's kind of cool. I personally didn't expect Febvre to look as fast as he's looked, and maybe he won't race as fast as he has practiced, but, you know, it's cool to see that he's going to mix it up. I would probably put him more like 5th or so if I, you know, had to do like a power rankings. I'd put probably Marvin and Brayton for sure ahead of him. I would say, you know, you could put a mix of like Bogle, maybe Reed, maybe Hill also up there in the mix as well. And then you just never know with guys like Ryan Sipes, Alex Martin. Like, they could do well, they could also not do well. Tough to say. And then there's a bunch of you know, French Supercross riders that you have to factor into this that are also very good. There's Cedric Superross is going to be there. You also have Thomas Vermette. You have Adrien Escoffier. There's a decent mix. Maxime Dupre. There's some fast French Supercross racers, and every time that the Paris Supercross comes, those guys always seem to ride a little bit better than where they would punch their weight in Supercross in the U.S., personally speaking. So, you know, Subs is like a 15th place guy, I think, in the U.S., but he could definitely challenge for top fives, I think, on a good night in Paris. So you have to factor those guys in for sure. Like I said, though, I would put Marvin winning this thing. I would think that the way that he doesn't win it is like bad starts with like a Brayton hole shot, for example. Or, you know, maybe Febvre does come out and just fully have the speed to run with those guys, and we know Febvre is a pretty good starter. So, you know, you factor those couple things in together. Maybe Febvre is actually a straight-up contender to win this thing. That'd be pretty interesting to see, like I said. But yeah, I'm just excited to see it, you know. Off-season, it feels like it moves slow, but then you have this come up, and then it feels like, man, we're already like halfway through off-season. Where did the time go? These guys are already kind of, you know, pretty deep into Supercross testing. So yeah, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see how Cairoli does, like how quickly he adapts to the Supercross tracks. Paris Supercross, one of the cool things about it is that they may be changing the format up a little bit, but normally speaking, they, you know, have a Friday and Saturday night main event, so you race 2 times to decide an overall winner. But they have a bunch of different things, like, you know, head-to-head races or Super Pole or whatever mixed in. So going to be kind of fun to see how on like a 1-lap pace how fast these guys can go, and maybe if they do head-to-head races or heat races or whatever, where those guys end up. I think Cairoli probably falls behind most of the guys that I've already mentioned, but, you know, he's a world-class racer, probably one of the greatest MXGP riders of all time, so he should be able to figure it out rather quickly and get himself into the mix. And that's another thing too, is I feel like oftentimes I talk to American fans that either don't watch GPs much or maybe aren't, you know, as invested to it, so they don't really feel like they have a good grasp on where these guys fall into. And one thing that I always say about the GP guys is that yes, they are fantastic at motocross. They don't have the Supercross skill sets because they don't train for Supercross. They don't ride Supercross regularly. But I don't think that that necessarily means that they could never do Supercross and wouldn't be good at it. I think that throwing them into the ringer, if you will, for this one night event, they're not going to be, you know, as good as they could be for sure. I think that you give Fevra and Cairoli both a full off-season testing Supercross, getting ready. They're not going to win the Supercross championship, in my opinion, but they're going to, you know, be a lot stronger than I think people give them credit for if you give them the time to test and get used to the dynamics of it. Of course, I think whoops plays a huge factor in it. Whoop speed is like, especially nowadays, it seems like 90% of what makes or breaks a Supercross career. If you're fast in the whoops, you're going to figure out pretty much everything else. And if you're slow in the whoops, everything else seems to slow a little bit down. So not having whoops helps these guys a ton. But I do think that you give them an off season or two maybe to figure it out. Like we've seen with Max Anstey, he was pretty reputable after a decade in GPs of coming back to Supercross and figuring it out. Even if he had already raced Supercross growing up, like it's one of those things that you know, it's changed a little bit since he last raced it, but also he hasn't really trained for it in a long time, and then he was pretty decent at it. And then you have to also factor in guys like Roxon and Muscan and Ferrandis and you name it. There's so many guys that have come over from the GPs and have won 250 Supercross titles, and they've only taken a couple years to get there. So you know, I think that the GP guys often don't get enough credit for their skill set because everyone just looks at them as motocross guys and they would never figure Supercross out. I think they would. I don't think that it's going to be, you know, Cairoli winning this weekend, but it's going to be exciting to see how quickly he learns it and how he develops it and where Fevra's real speed is at and other things like that. I got Marvin winning though, so let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who do you think is going to win this weekend? What do you think of this track? What do you think of this design? And are we excited to see some off-season racing? A little bit of something to add some flair to the off-season. Pretty much after this, there's not much going on. It's pretty much just going to be test track grinding. We'll probably have a lot more videos on racetracksonline.com of, you know, test track stuff and whatnot, but not any races going on after this. There's pretty much nothing. So soak it up while we can. Watch the Paris Supercross. Enjoy the weekend and have a good time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want to try this track, by the way, it's called 2021 Paris SX on the PC. I haven't put it on console yet. I might after the event is over, but I won't beforehand. I'm actually flying to Florida tomorrow, so going to be a little bit busy. But yeah, just looking forward to this weekend. Hopefully you guys are as well. And I appreciate you guys stopping by and watching another video here on the channel. And we'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.